And welcome back. Today's message is somewhat of a part two to the previous video about the Transfiguration I did yesterday. Now, I recognize there was much more to say after I uploaded, so here we go. To review, many Christians connect the Transfiguration in Matthew chapter 17 with Jesus' promise in Matthew 16 that some of his disciples would not taste death till they saw the Son of Man coming in his kingdom. I believe that's a misunderstanding, so let's take a look at it. Now, just before the Transfiguration in Matthew 16, about a week earlier, Peter declared, "You are the Messiah, the Son of the living God." And Jesus commended him. Jesus told him, "That revelation wasn't yours, Peter. That came directly from the Father himself." And he was blessed. Now, this is crucial context. 6 days later, Jesus took Peter, James, and John up a high mountain where Jesus was transfigured, with his face shining and his clothes brilliant. Moses and Elijah appear, talking with him. But is this all there is about the Transfiguration? As I mentioned in my last video, many futurists interpret the shining as the glory of his Father that Jesus spoke of in Matthew 16:27. And I argue that the glory Jesus referred to in Matthew 16 was far more than just a bright light. The Greek word doxa, when speaking of God, means divine majesty. It means divine perfection and authority, as well as kingly judgment. It's about God's decisive and powerful intervention, not just a temporary brightness on a mountain. So what then was the Transfiguration? We do see Moses representing the law, and we see Elijah representing the prophets. But since both were sleeping in Sheol at the time, as all the old covenant departed would do, this was a visionary event, underscoring Jesus' fulfillment of and his superiority to both the law and the prophets. And this is the culmination of God's plan. Now, I just want to take a second here to recognize one of our commenters. His name is John Frost. He added to our discussion by commenting that visions don't fulfill prophecy. I never looked at it that way, so I learned something. Thank you, John, for making sure that nugget of wisdom didn't escape our notice. Now I'm continuing. And then the Father's voice booms from the cloud. "This is my Son, whom I love. With him I am pleased. Listen to him." This divine command adds incredible weight and heavenly gravitas to every single word Jesus spoke. Words his disciples remembered, and that perfectly, because in John 14:26, Jesus declared to them, quote, "But the Helper, the Holy Spirit, whom the Father will send in my name, he will teach you all things, and he will bring to your remembrance all things that I said to you." Now, what Jesus taught, they wrote down and brought it to the world. This event was meant to instill awe and belief in Jesus' identity and authority, and it should still put the fear of God in us, just as it did in Peter, James, and John. It calls us to take Jesus seriously and believe what he says. And what he said repeatedly, along with the inspired writers of the Gospels and Epistles, was that his parousia, only prophesied parousia or coming, was imminent. And it was to be in the original audience's generation before all of them passed away. The Transfiguration reinforces the absolute authority of Jesus' words, including his clear statements about his soon return. So who's going to start reconsidering the lifeless traditions offered by sincere but ill-informed leaders? I'm asking you to. So please share this message with friends and family. Now, I know the difficulties involved in discarding the comfort of long-held doctrinal beliefs. The emotional ties are so hard to unbind. But the power to be set free comes from faith to simply believe what Jesus said, even when he says in Matthew 24:34, "Assuredly I say to you, this generation will by no means pass away till all these things take place." I know some of those things that precede verse 34 seem impossible to have occurred. But if taken literally, sure, they would have been impossible. But if you take the courageous step to learn how the original audience had no problem accepting and believing Jesus' words of a first century return, your Christian life will be rejuvenated. Mine sure was. So Do you want a revival? If so, let's get to it. I'm out.